I'm 71 years old, and I've learned that the most dangerous betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the people who call you Dad while calculating what you're worth. My name is Edward Mitchell. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. Spent 40 years as a mechanical engineer. Retired now for 6. My wife Helen passed 8 years ago. Cancer took her quickly, which was a mercy, though it didn't feel like one at the time. We built a good life, careful planning, modest living, smart investments. Helen's life insurance made sure I'd never be a burden to anyone. Funny how that works out. Before we go further, do me a favor. If you're watching from somewhere else in the world, drop your location in the comments. I'm curious who's listening to an old engineer's story, and if this resonates with you, hit that like button. Helps more people find this. Patricia called me in early November about Thanksgiving. My daughter, 43 years old, married to Mark for 15 years, mother to Tommy. The call was pleasant enough on the surface. Dad, we'd love to have you for Thanksgiving. Mark's smoking a turkey this year. I said that sounded nice. But here's the thing about spending 4 decades designing aircraft components. You learn to hear what's not being said. You learn that a rivet under stress makes a sound before it fails. Patricia's voice had that same frequency. Obligation, duty, not warmth. Since Helen died, the holidays have felt like performances, everyone playing their part. Patricia hosts, because that's what good daughters do. Mark carves the turkey, because that's what good sons-in-law do. I show up because that's what grateful fathers do. Except I've noticed things shifting. Small things at first. The way Patricia's eyes glaze over when I talk about my week. How Mark's handshake got briefer each visit. How conversations about my finances seem to sharpen their attention in ways conversations about my health never do. Last Easter, I mentioned meeting with my financial advisor. Just casual talk, and Patricia and Mark exchanged a look. Quick, practiced. The kind of look that says we'll discuss this later. In June, I told Patricia I was updating my will. Standard stuff, making sure everything was in order. She cut me off mid-sentence to ask if I'd taken my blood pressure medication that morning. At the time, I let it go. But then, the questions started. Little probes disguised as concern. Dad, are you remembering to pay your bills on time? I've been paying bills since before she was born. Dad, did you forget we talked about this last week? We hadn't talked about it last week. Dad, have you thought about making things easier on yourself? Simplifying? I'm 71, not 91. My mind is sharp. I still do the crossword in pen. I rebuilt a carburetor last month for my old Chevy just to prove I could. But I know what I'm seeing. I built fail-safes into aircraft for 40 years. I know when a system's being tested for weakness. This Thanksgiving invitation felt wrong from the start. Not in a way I could explain to anyone else. Just a frequency only I could hear. So I decided to trust my instincts. Sometimes the best engineering is invisible. Sometimes you have to place a sensor where no one expects it and wait to see what the data reveals. I accepted Patricia's invitation, and I started preparing. 40 years designing fail-safes for aircraft taught me one thing. When you sense something's about to break, you document everything. I didn't get to retirement by ignoring warning signs. Boeing didn't keep me for 4 decades because I was lucky. I was good because I was thorough, methodical. I observed patterns, collected data, and I trusted my measurements over my assumptions. Same principle applies here. I started noticing the pattern back in the spring. Patricia asking questions about my memory. Mark making comments about future planning and getting ahead of problems. At first, I thought maybe they were just worried. Helen's death hit Patricia hard. She'd lost her mother, and maybe she was afraid of losing me too. But engineers don't deal in maybes. We deal in evidence. Evidence. Patricia asked me 3 times in 2 months if I'd considered a more manageable living situation. My house is 1,800 square feet. I've lived here for 30 years. I know every creak in the floorboards. Evidence. Mark mentioned power of attorney twice during casual conversations. Framed it as just smart planning for down the road. Evidence. Tommy, my 12-year-old grandson, told me last month that he heard his parents talking about Grandpa's money after I left their house. Tommy's a good kid, Reminds me of myself at that age. Curious, honest, watchful. He's the only one who still talks to me like I'm a person instead of a problem to be managed. When I visit, he shows me his science projects, asks me how things work. Last time, we built a model rocket together in their garage while Patricia and Mark stayed inside. The boy's got an engineer's mind. He didn't say it to hurt anyone. He just mentioned it the way kids do, stating facts without understanding the weight they carry. Mom said you're really good with money, Grandpa. Dad said you're probably worth a lot. I smiled and changed the subject, but I filed it away. Now I'm not paranoid. Paranoid means seeing threats that aren't there. I'm seeing threats that are very clearly there. I'm just methodical about confirming them. So I made a decision. I'd document Thanksgiving dinner, not with a camera, nothing obvious, just my phone, recording audio while I stepped away from the table. I wanted to hear what got said when they thought I couldn't hear it. Simple test. If I'm wrong, I'd hear normal conversation and I could let this whole thing go. If I'm right, well, engineers prepare for both outcomes. I spent the week before Thanksgiving getting ready, charged my phone fully, tested the voice recorder app, made sure it could pick up conversation from a few feet away, practiced placing it casually, naturally. Helen used to say I overthought everything. She was probably right, but overthinking kept airplanes in the sky. It kept our retirement funded. It kept us safe. Maybe it would keep me safe too. The night before Thanksgiving, I lay in bed thinking about what I might hear, what I hoped I wouldn't. But hope's not data, and I needed to know the truth. The moment my son-in-law told me I was too old for a 2-hour drive, I knew they weren't protecting me. They were positioning me. I arrived at Patricia's house just after noon. She lives in Mount Pleasant now, one of those upscale subdivisions where every house looks like it was designed by the same committee. Big garages, manicured lawns, HOA rules about mailbox colors. Nice place. My money helped with the down payment 5 years ago, though nobody mentions that anymore. Mark answered the door. His handshake was brief, the kind you give a contractor, not family. Professional distance. Ed, good to see you. Come on in. Ed. Not Edward. Not Dad. Just Ed. Patricia appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She kissed my cheek, but her eyes were already moving past me, checking something over my shoulder. Dad! Happy Thanksgiving. Let me take your coat. Then Tommy came bounding down the stairs, and for the first time since I'd pulled into the driveway, I felt like I was actually welcome. Grandpa! The boy hugged me hard, 12 years old and already almost to my shoulder. He'd grow up tall like his grandfather. How's my engineer? I asked. Good. I got an A on my science project, the one we talked about. That's my boy. Patricia put her hand on Tommy's shoulder. Tommy, let Grandpa get settled. Go wash up for dinner. The warmth drained out of the room the second Tommy left. We moved to the dining room. The table was set nice. Patricia's always been good at presentations. Turkey, stuffing, the whole traditional spread. Mark poured wine. I stuck with water. Wanted my head clear. Conversation started the way it always does. Polite, surface level. Patricia talked about neighborhood drama. Someone's fence was 2 inches over the property line. Someone else's lawn service came too early on Saturdays. Mark talked about his promotion at the insurance company. More responsibility. Better title. I listened, nodded, ate my turkey. Then I mentioned my trip. I'm driving up to Asheville next month to see my brother Robert. Haven't seen him since summer. Patricia looked at Mark. That look again, the one I've been seeing for months. Mark set down his fork. That's a long drive for someone your age, Ed. What is it? 2 hours? 2.5, I said. I've made it 100 times. Sure, but... Mark glanced at Patricia. Roads are different now. More traffic. Holiday travelers. Maybe Patricia could drive you. I don't need Patricia to drive me. I'm 71, not senile. The word hung in the air. Patricia jumped in, her voice smooth. Dad, no one's saying that. We just worry. You're precious to us. Precious. Like china you keep locked in a cabinet. I smiled, took a sip of water, let the moment pass. But inside, my engineer's mind was running calculations, testing loads, measuring stress points, Something was coming. I could feel it. I just needed to step away long enough to let it show itself. I placed that phone under my napkin, the same way I'd place a sensor on a wing assembly, carefully, deliberately, knowing it would either confirm my fears or let me sleep easy. Halfway through dinner, I made my move. "Excuse me. Restroom." Patricia waved toward the hallway. "You know where it is, Dad." I stood slowly, old man pace, gave them no reason to think anything was different. My phone was in my pocket. I'd activated the voice recorder before I even walked into the house. Just hit record and let it run. Battery was full. Storage was clear. The app was simple. Big red button. Clear audio capture. I walked down the hallway, my hand steady in my pocket. The bathroom was at the far end of the house. Good. Distance meant privacy, meant they'd feel safe talking. I stepped inside, closed the door, and pulled out my phone. Recording timer showed 18 minutes elapsed. I turned the volume down to 0, checked that the microphone wasn't muted, then slid it into the cloth napkin I'd carried with me. Engineers think in systems. The napkin would muffle any notification sounds. The phone's microphone was on the bottom edge. If I positioned it right, it would capture everything at the table. I folded the napkin around the phone. Casual, natural, like I'd just brought it along without thinking. Then I flushed the toilet, washed my hands, let the water run longer than necessary. I looked at myself in the mirror. White hair, lined face, but my eyes were still clear. Helen used to say I had truth-seeking eyes, said I could look at something broken and see exactly how it failed. I wondered what she'd think of me now, recording my own daughter, searching for evidence of betrayal at a Thanksgiving table. But Helen was practical. She'd understand. She'd want to know the truth, too. I dried my hands, took a breath. Then I walked back to the dining room, the phone hidden in the folded napkin in my left hand. Mark was refilling his wine. Patricia was clearing some of the serving dishes. Tommy was pushing stuffing around his plate. I sat down, placed the napkin casually next to my plate, the phone tucked underneath. Positioning was everything. Close enough to capture voices, far enough from my hands that I wouldn't accidentally bump it. "Everything okay, Dad?" Patricia asked. "Fine, just fine." I picked up my fork and took another bite of turkey. The conversation resumed. Patricia talked about Tommy's school. Mark mentioned something about their vacation plans for Christmas. I nodded along, smiled, played my part, but my mind was 40 feet away, hovering over that table like a surveillance drone. Whatever came next, I'd have a record. Whatever truth they were hiding, I'd hear it in their own words. I just had to wait. My 12-year-old grandson had more spine than his parents had shame, and his voice on that recording saved everything I'd spent a lifetime building. I returned to the dining room to find them clearing dishes. Tommy sat at his place, fork resting on his plate, looking uncomfortable. His eyes found mine for just a second before Patricia called him. "Tommy, help your dad carry these serving dishes to the kitchen." The boy stood without argument. Good kid, respectful, even when his parents didn't deserve it. I made small talk with Patricia while Mark and Tommy ferried plates and bowls. She mentioned something about their neighborhood book club. I nodded along. My phone sat hidden under that napkin, recording every word. After a few minutes, I excused myself again. Need to wash up. This time I actually went to the bathroom, gave them space, gave them the illusion of privacy. I washed my hands slowly, listening to the sounds of the house, dishes clattering, water running, Mark's voice calling something to Tommy from the kitchen. When I came back, Patricia was wiping down the table. Mark was still in the kitchen with Tommy. I started to sit down. Then Patricia suggested I might be more comfortable in the living room while they finished cleaning up. I agreed, moved to the couch, picked up a magazine from their coffee table, and that's when I heard it. Not in real time. I wouldn't hear it until later, in my kitchen, when I played back that recording. But it happened right then, while I sat 15 feet away pretending to read about fishing in South Carolina coastal waters. Tommy's voice, young, shaking slightly, but clear. "Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something." Silence on the recording. Then Patricia's voice, tight. "What is it, Tommy?" "I heard you, last week, when you thought I was asleep, talking about Grandpa." Mark's voice, cautious. "Tommy, about getting him declared, what did you call it? Incompetent?" About controlling his money? The silence that followed must have lasted 5 seconds, an eternity when you're 12 years old and you've just confronted your parents with something you weren't supposed to know. Then Tommy spoke again, and his voice cracked but didn't break. I won't let you do that to him. He's not incompetent. He's smarter than both of you. And what you're planning, it's wrong. I learned all of this later, sitting alone at my kitchen table, headphones on, listening to my grandson show more courage than most grown men I've known. But sitting there in Patricia's living room, magazine open in my lap, I had no idea what was being said at that table 20 feet away. I just knew that whatever came next, I needed to play my part perfectly. I needed to be the grateful father, the slightly tired old man, the one who doesn't hear well anymore, who doesn't notice things, who certainly doesn't suspect that his own daughter is plotting to rob him of his autonomy and his life savings. After a few more minutes, Patricia came into the living room. Her smile was tight. Dad, we're just about finished. Do you want coffee? No, thank you. I should probably head home soon. Getting tired. Of course. Big meal. She helped me up from the couch even though I didn't need help, fussed over me like I was fragile. And the whole time, I wondered what conversation had just happened in that dining room. I wouldn't have to wonder long. The moment my daughter threatened my grandson into silence, she stopped being my little girl and became someone I didn't recognize. The recording captured everything. Patricia's sharp intake of breath after Tommy finished speaking, the scrape of a chair, then Mark's voice, low and controlled in that way people use when they're trying very hard not to shout. Tommy, you don't understand adult matters. I understand you want to take Grandpa's house and his money and make it so he can't say no. Silence. Then Patricia, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it. Where did you get that idea? I told you. I heard you. Last Tuesday night, you were in the study. You said Grandpa was sitting on a fortune, and he'd never know the difference if you... Enough. That was Mark. Sharp. Final. Tommy tried again. But it's not right. Grandpa worked his whole life for Thomas Michael Brennan, Patricia's full name voice, the one she used when Tommy was in real trouble. You will not repeat this to anyone, not your friends, not your teachers, and definitely not your grandfather. Do you understand me? But Mom, do you understand me? A pause, then Tommy's voice, smaller. Yes. Good. Mark again. Because there are consequences for children who don't respect their parents' privacy. Do we need to talk about consequences, Tommy? No, sir. Do we need to take away your phone? Your Xbox? Maybe that science camp you wanted to go to next summer? No, sir. Then we're clear. You heard something you weren't supposed to hear. You misunderstood it because you're 12 and you don't understand how adult finances work, and you're going to forget this conversation ever happened. Correct? Silence. Tommy. Correct? Yes, sir. Patricia's voice softened then, but the sweetness in it was worse than the coldness had been. Honey, we love Grandpa. Everything we're doing is to protect him. When people get older, they need help making decisions. It's our responsibility to make sure he's taken care of. You'll understand when you're older. He seems fine to me. Well, you're not a doctor, are you? I listened to that recording 3 times before I could move on to the next part. Each time, I felt something harden in my chest. Patricia wasn't just greedy. She was calculating. She'd thought this through. She'd rehearsed her justifications. And Mark was the muscle, the enforcer, threatening a 12-year-old boy with losing his summer camp because the kid had the moral clarity to call them out. That's what got me. Not the financial conspiracy, not even the plan to have me declared incompetent. It was the ease with which they threatened Tommy, the casual way Mark listed the things he'd take from his own son if the boy didn't fall in line, the sweetness in Patricia's voice when she tried to make it sound like they were the good guys, protecting the confused old man from himself. I'd spent 40 years building aircraft components. I understood load-bearing structures. I understood stress points and failure thresholds. My daughter had just crossed hers, and she didn't even know I had the evidence to prove it. I learned in 40 years of engineering that the worst time to make a decision is when you're angry. So I smiled. I thanked them for dinner, and I drove home with evidence of their betrayal in my pocket. I returned to the dining room just as they were finishing up. My phone was still under that napkin, still recording. I picked it up casually, slipped it into my pocket, while Patricia was looking the other way. My face revealed nothing. 40 years of engineering meetings taught me that skill. Sitting across from corporate executives who wanted to cut corners on safety specs. Listening to managers explain why we needed to compromise on component quality to meet budget targets. I learned to keep my expression neutral, to nod, to smile, to say, I understand, while my mind calculated exactly how I'd document their incompetence. Same skill, different stakes. Patricia smiled at me, tight, controlled. More coffee, Dad? No, thank you. That was a wonderful meal. Mark avoided eye contact, kept himself busy putting plastic wrap over the leftover turkey. Tommy stood by the sink, drying dishes his father handed him. The boy's eyes found mine, and I saw something in them I hadn't seen before. Desperation, fear, and a question he couldn't ask. Did you hear? Do you know? I couldn't answer. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was dealing with. So I just smiled at him, winked. Then I helped carry serving dishes to the kitchen, complimented Patricia's stuffing, asked Mark about his promotion, played the role they expected, the grateful father, the slightly tired old man, the one who doesn't suspect a thing. Inside, my mind was racing. Legal options, documentation needs, next steps. Who could I trust? Who would believe me? Did I have enough evidence, or did I need more? And most importantly, was Tommy safe? That last question hit me hardest. Tommy had confronted them. He'd shown courage most adults never find, and they'd threatened him into silence. What would they do if they thought he'd talk to me? I stayed 20 more minutes, long enough that leaving wouldn't seem abrupt, long enough to finish helping clean up and compliment the meal one more time. Then I announced I was tired and should head home. Patricia didn't argue. Of course, Dad. You must be exhausted. She walked me to the door, helped me with my coat, like I was fragile. Mark shook my hand. Same brief grip as when I'd arrived. Drive safe, Ed. Tommy appeared at the bottom of the stairs. I moved toward him, and he hugged me. I held him longer than usual, felt his thin shoulders under my hands, felt him holding on just a little too tight. I bent down close to his ear. I love you, buddy. Love you too, Grandpa. Then I let go, waved one more time, walked to my car. I drove the speed limit all the way home, hands steady on the wheel, eyes on the road, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, calculating, planning, preparing for what came next. Because I'm an engineer, and engineers don't react emotionally to system failures. We document them, we analyze them, and then we fix them. Sitting in my kitchen, listening to my daughter price my freedom at $5,000 paid to a corrupt doctor, I finally understood. I hadn't lost a daughter to greed. I'd just never really known her at all. The drive from Patricia's house in Mount Pleasant back to my place on James Island takes about 20 minutes. Normal traffic, familiar roads. I drove in complete silence. Radio off, windows up. Just me and my thoughts and that phone in my pocket carrying evidence of a betrayal I still couldn't quite process. I pulled into my driveway just before 8. The house was dark, empty. It's been empty for 8 years now, since Helen died. I unlocked the door, turned on the kitchen light. The kitchen table sat where it always had. Same table Helen used to sit at, grading her students' papers. She taught 3rd grade for 35 years. Loved those kids like they were her own. She'd grade papers at this table with a red pen and a cup of tea, and she'd tell me stories about the sweet ones, the troublemakers, the ones who tried so hard but struggled. I sat down in my usual chair, pulled out my phone, and I played the recording from the beginning. Tommy's voice came first, young and brave and shaking. Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something. I closed my eyes and listened to my grandson confront his parents, listened to Patricia's coldness and Mark's threats, listened to them silence a child for trying to do the right thing. Then I heard something I hadn't expected. After Tommy left the room, I could hear his footsteps, the creak of the stairs. There was a long silence, maybe 30 seconds. Then Patricia's voice, barely above a whisper. Jesus Christ, Mark, do you think he'll tell him? No, He's scared. He won't. But if he does, then we move faster. Brennan said he could have the evaluation done in a week if we need it. Your father won't even know what's happening until it's too late. Another pause. Then Patricia again. Your father's sitting on over $1 million between the house, the savings, and Helen's insurance. He doesn't need it. He's 71. What's he going to do with $1 million? We have Tommy's college to think about. Our retirement. I know. We're not doing anything wrong. We're protecting him. I know. Patricia. Brennan's fee is $5,000 for the competency evaluation. Another $3,000 for the testimony if it goes to court. But it won't. Your father's attorney will see the medical evidence and advise him to accept a voluntary guardianship. It'll be done by Christmas. And if it's not, then we do it the hard way. But either way, Mark, by January, that house is ours. The recording continued for another few minutes. Sounds of them finishing the dishes. Normal conversation about whether they needed milk from the store. Like they hadn't just planned the systematic destruction of my independence. Like they hadn't just threatened their own son into silence. Like this was normal, acceptable, just protecting me. I sat at that kitchen table for an hour after the recording ended. Didn't move, didn't make tea, just sat. Helen's chair across from me was empty, had been for 8 years. I wondered what she'd say if she could hear this, if she knew that the little girl we raised, the one who used to make us breakfast in bed on Father's Day, who cried when her hamster died, who called me every Sunday until the calls started feeling like obligations, had turned into this. Someone who could calculate my worth down to the dollar, someone who'd bribe a doctor, someone who'd sell my house out from under me and call it protection. But Helen wasn't here. It was just me, and a recording, and the cold, clear understanding that I was going to have to fight my own daughter to save myself and my grandson. Because Tommy had tried to stop this. Tommy had been brave, and I'd be damned if I let them punish him for it. My attorney listened to that recording once, looked me in the eye, and said 3 words that changed everything. We've got them. Friday morning, I sat in the office of Margaret Cho, family law and elder abuse attorney. My financial advisor had recommended her, said she was the best in Charleston for cases like mine. Her office was on King Street, 3rd floor of an old building that had been renovated into modern professional space. Clean, organized, diplomas on the wall from Georgetown and University of South Carolina Law. Margaret was about 50, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. She shook my hand firmly and gestured to the chair across from her desk. Mr. Mitchell, your advisor said you needed to speak with me urgently. Something about a family matter? Yes, ma'am. I need you to listen to something. I pulled out my phone, set it on her desk, pressed play. Margaret listened to the entire recording without interrupting. 17 minutes of my grandson's courage, my daughter's coldness, and a conspiracy laid out in their own words. When it ended, Margaret's expression had hardened. Mr. Mitchell, what you've recorded here constitutes conspiracy to commit elder abuse through fraudulent guardianship, attempted financial exploitation, and child intimidation. This is both criminal and civil. I nodded. I thought as much. But I needed to hear it from someone who knows the law. How old is your grandson? 12. And he confronted them on his own initiative? You didn't prompt this? I didn't even know he'd overheard them until I listened to this recording. Tommy did that himself. Margaret made a note. Then she looked at me directly. Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Are you concerned for your grandson's safety? That question hit harder than I expected. Yes, I said. They threatened him, told him he'd lose everything he cares about if he talked. I don't know what they'll do if they think he told me. Margaret nodded. That recording proves your grandson is at risk in that home. We can petition for emergency temporary custody while authorities investigate. You have grounds. Strong grounds. What would that mean? Tommy living with me? Temporarily, yes, until the investigation concludes and the court determines what's in the child's best interest. Given what's on that recording, the threats, the intimidation, I'd say we have better than good odds of the judge granting it. I sat back in my chair, felt something loosen in my chest. Tommy could be safe, away from them, away from their threats and their schemes. What do I need to do? I asked. Margaret smiled slightly. It was the first warmth I'd seen from her. Exactly what you've already done. Document everything. You recorded evidence that most victims of elder financial abuse never get. Your daughter and son-in-law discussed their plan in specific detail. They named a corrupt medical professional. They threatened a minor into silence. And you captured all of it. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Here's what happens next. I'll contact Adult Protective Services and the Charleston County Sheriff's Office today. They'll want to interview you, review the recording, and likely interview your grandson in a safe, supervised environment. We'll file for emergency custody simultaneously. I'll also prepare a restraining order preventing your daughter and son-in-law from accessing your financial accounts or medical records. How long will this take? The emergency custody hearing could happen as early as Monday. The criminal investigation will take longer. But Mr. Mitchell, we've got them. They handed us everything we need. I stood, shook her hand again. Thank you, Miss Cho. Call me Margaret. And Mr. Mitchell, you did the right thing. Walking out of that office, I felt something I hadn't felt since Thanksgiving dinner. Hope. When the detective told me my grandson would need to testify about his own parents' threats, I saw myself wipe away a tear, and I knew we were doing the right thing, no matter how hard it got. Margaret moved fast. By Friday afternoon, she'd contacted Adult Protective Services and the Charleston County Sheriff's Office. By Monday, she'd arranged interviews with both agencies. Tuesday afternoon, I sat in a conference room at the sheriff's office with Margaret beside me. Across the table sat Detective Linda Harris, who specialized in elder abuse cases. Detective Harris was in her 40s, I'd guess. Calm, professional. The kind of cop who'd seen enough to know that the worst crimes often happen inside families. She set a digital recorder on the table between us. Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to ask you to tell me everything that happened from the beginning. Take your time. Details matter. So I told her about Patricia's changing attitude, about the questions regarding my memory and my bills, about Mark's comments about future planning, about Thanksgiving dinner and my decision to record. Then I played her the recording. Detective Harris listened without expression, took notes in a small notebook. When Tommy's voice came on, young and brave and shaking, I saw her jaw tighten slightly. When the recording ended, she sat back. Mr. Mitchell, we'll need to interview your grandson in a safe environment. Can you tell me about your current relationship with him? I see him every few weeks. We're close. He's a good boy, smart, honest. And since Thanksgiving, have you had contact with him? No. Detective Harris, I'm worried about what they might do if they think he talked to me. She nodded. That's a reasonable concern. The threats on that recording constitute child intimidation, combined with the conspiracy to commit elder abuse. We have grounds for immediate intervention. Margaret spoke up. We've filed for emergency temporary custody. The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Detective Harris made another note. Good. Once custody is transferred, we'll arrange a forensic interview at the Children's Advocacy Center. It's designed to be child-friendly, non-threatening. A trained interviewer will speak with Tommy, and I'll observe. Everything will be recorded for the court. She looked at me directly. Mr. Mitchell, I also need to tell you, we'll be investigating Dr. Brennan. If he's accepting bribes for fraudulent competency evaluations, he's not just a danger to you. He's a danger to other vulnerable adults in this community. That thought hadn't occurred to me. How many other families had this doctor helped rob? What about Patricia and Mark? I asked. We'll conduct a separate interview with them, but not yet. Right now we need to move carefully to protect Tommy and build the strongest possible case. I don't want them destroying evidence or coaching the child, so I don't contact them. Correct. No calls, no texts, no visits. If they reach out to you, be polite but brief. Don't mention the recording, the attorney, or the investigation. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Detective Harris closed her notebook. Mr. Mitchell, I've worked elder abuse cases for 8 years. Most victims never get the kind of evidence you have here. Your daughter and son-in-law handed us their conspiracy on tape, and your grandson showed remarkable courage. She paused. But I need to prepare you. Tommy will need to testify about what he overheard, about the threats. It won't be easy for him. telling strangers that his parents tried to silence him. I felt my eyes sting, blinked hard. I know, but it's necessary, not just for your case, but for his safety. I understand. Walking out of that sheriff's office, Margaret beside me, I thought about Tommy, about what I was asking him to do, about the courage it would take for a 12-year-old to stand up and tell the truth about his own parents. But I also thought about what would happen if I didn't fight this. Tommy would grow up watching his parents steal from his grandfather, learning that betrayal pays, that threatening people into silence works. No, better he learn the harder truth, that doing the right thing costs something, but it's still right. Watching my 12-year-old grandson tell a stranger that his own mother threatened him for trying to protect me, that's when I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about saving the only innocent person in my daughter's house. Wednesday morning, the judge granted emergency temporary custody. Margaret called me from the courthouse. "You've got him, Edward. Temporary placement with you, effective immediately. The sheriff's office will coordinate the transfer." I'd prepared his room the night before, Helen's old sewing room. I'd cleared out the machine, the fabric boxes, the patterns she'd saved for years, put in a bed I'd ordered online, made it up with new sheets. Tommy arrived that afternoon with a deputy and a social worker, 2 suitcases and a backpack. His eyes were red. "Hey, Grandpa. Hey, buddy." I hugged him, felt him shake slightly. The deputy explained the terms of the custody order. Patricia and Mark had been informed. They were not to contact Tommy except through official supervised channels. They were not to come to my house. After the deputy left, Tommy and I sat in the kitchen. "They're really mad," he said quietly. "I know. Mom said I betrayed the family." I reached across the table, took his hand. "Tommy, listen to me. You told the truth. That's never betrayal. That's courage." He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. Thursday morning, we drove to the Children's Advocacy Center on Leeds Avenue. The building looked nothing like a police station. Bright colors, comfortable furniture, toys in the waiting area, designed to put kids at ease. Sarah Chen, the forensic interviewer, met us in the lobby. She was young, maybe 30, with a warm smile and gentle voice. "Tommy, I'm Sarah. I'm going to ask you some questions today, okay? Your grandpa can be in the room with you if you want, or he can wait out here. Whatever makes you comfortable." Tommy looked at me. "Can you come?" "Of course." We followed Sarah into a small room with a couch, some chairs, a table with drawing supplies. Nothing institutional about it, just a calm space. Sarah sat across from Tommy. I sat to the side, close enough that Tommy could see me, but not interfering. "Tommy, I want you to tell me about what you heard your parents say. Take your time. There's no rush." And Tommy talked. He described hearing them multiple times. Not just the Thanksgiving conversation, but others before. They were in Dad's study 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I was supposed to be asleep, but I came downstairs for water and heard them talking about Grandpa's house, about how they could move him to a cheaper facility after they sold it. Mom said Grandpa wouldn't even know the difference. Sarah took notes but never interrupted. "What else did you hear?" "They talked about selling his stuff, his tools in the garage, his car. Mom said he had too much clutter anyway and wouldn't miss it. My tools, the same tools I'd used to build Patricia's dollhouse when she was 7. Tommy continued. "And they practiced. What they'd say to the judge about Grandpa's declining mental state. They made a list of things to mention, how he repeats himself, how he forgets appointments. None of which was true, but it didn't matter. They were building a false narrative." Then Tommy's voice got quieter. "After Thanksgiving, when I told them I heard them, Mom got really close to my face. She said if I told anyone, I'd regret it, that I'd lose everything I care about." He wiped his eyes. "She said family protects family, and if I couldn't do that, then maybe I didn't deserve to be part of this family." Sarah's expression didn't change, but I saw her grip her pen tighter. "Did that scare you, Tommy?" "Yes, ma'am." "What did you think she meant?" "I don't know, but she looked really angry, like I'd never seen her before." Sarah asked a few more questions, clarifying details, making sure everything was documented properly. Through the one-way glass in the wall, I knew Detective Harris was watching, recording, building the case. After 40 minutes, Sarah thanked Tommy. You did really well. I know that wasn't easy. Tommy looked at me. Did I do okay, Grandpa? I stood, hugged him. You did perfect, buddy. I'm proud of you. Walking out of that building, Tommy's hand in mine, I realized something. I'd thought I was protecting him, but really, he'd protected me first. And now it was my turn to make sure that courage wasn't wasted. The look on my daughter's face when the detective said, "Your son testified against you." That was the moment she realized her own cruelty had turned her child into a witness for the prosecution. I wasn't there when it happened. Detective Harris filled me in later. Friday afternoon, she and a deputy pulled up to Patricia's house in Mount Pleasant, the same house I'd sat in on Thanksgiving, the same dining room where I'd left my phone recording. Patricia answered the door. Detective Harris showed her badge. "Mrs. Brennan, I'm Detective Linda Harris with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office. We need to speak with you and your husband regarding allegations of elder abuse conspiracy and child intimidation." According to Harris, Patricia's face went blank, confused. "I'm sorry. What? Is your husband home?" Yes. What is this about?" Mark appeared behind Patricia. Detective Harris said his face drained of color the moment he saw the uniforms. He knew, immediately. Harris explained their rights, that they weren't under arrest at this time, but they needed to come to the station for questioning, that they had the right to an attorney, that anything they said could be used in court. Patricia's voice rose. "This is insane. Who accused us of, what did you say, elder abuse?" Harris kept her tone even, professional. "Your father and your son. We have recorded evidence of conspiracy to fraudulently obtain guardianship, financial exploitation, and intimidation of a minor witness. Recorded evidence." Patricia's eyes went wide. Tommy said something to you? Your son provided testimony, yes, at the Children's Advocacy Center, with his grandfather present as temporary guardian. Temporary guardian? What are you? Mark put his hand on Patricia's arm. His voice was tight. "We should call a lawyer." "That's your right," Harris confirmed. Patricia turned on Mark. "A lawyer? For what? This is ridiculous. My father he's confused. Ma'am," Harris interrupted. "Your father is cognitively sharp and fully competent. We've had him evaluated by an independent physician as part of our investigation. He scored perfectly on all assessments." The silence that followed must have been heavy. Then Patricia again, her voice shaking now. "I want to see my son." "That's not possible at this time. The court has granted temporary custody to your father due to credible evidence that your son was threatened into silence regarding your conspiracy." "Threatened? I never. Mrs. Brennan, we have your voice on recording, telling your 12-year-old son that he would regret it and lose everything he cares about if he revealed your plan. That constitutes witness intimidation and child abuse." According to Harris, Patricia actually stumbled backward, had to catch herself on the doorframe. Mark's jaw clenched. "We're not saying anything without a lawyer." "Understood, but you will need to come to the station. Today." They did, both of them, with their attorney. Detective Harris called me that evening. They lawyered up immediately, didn't give us anything. But Mr. Mitchell, you should have seen their faces when I mentioned the recording. Your daughter genuinely had no idea you documented any of it. She thought I was too old to think of it. Probably. And she certainly never suspected her son would testify. That shocked her more than anything. I thanked Harris and hung up. Then I walked to Tommy's room. He was doing homework at his desk. Algebra, by the look of it. "They came to the house today," I said. "The police." Tommy looked up, his eyes worried. "Are they mad?" "I'm sure they are. But that doesn't matter now. What matters is you're safe." He nodded slowly. "Grandpa, did I do the right thing?" I sat on the edge of his bed. "You did the only thing. And yeah, buddy, you did right. When my grandson asked if he could stay with me instead of going back to his parents, I realized he wasn't just protecting me anymore. He was choosing the kind of man he wanted to become." That evening, Tommy and I sat on my back porch. The house on James Island backs up to the marsh. In the evenings, you can watch the tide come in, listen to the birds settling for the night. Helen used to sit out here with her tea. Now Tommy sat beside me, quiet. The sun was setting, orange and pink across the water. Finally, he spoke. Are Mom and Dad going to jail? I thought about how to answer that. Decided on the truth. I don't know yet, buddy. They did serious things. Tried to hurt me. Tried to scare you. Those things have consequences. But I don't know exactly what the judge will decide. Tommy was quiet for another minute. I love them, Grandpa. I know you do. But what they were doing was wrong. Yes, it was. He looked at me then, his eyes searching. Is it bad that I told? That I testified? I put my arm around his shoulders. No. Loving someone and accepting their wrong choices are two different things. You can love your parents and still know that what they planned was wrong. You were brave enough to stand up for what's right, even when it was hard, even when it cost you something. It feels like it cost everything. I know. We sat there as the light faded. A heron landed in the marsh grass, long and elegant. Your grandmother would be so proud of you, I said quietly. I wish I remembered her better. I was only 4 when she died. She would have loved you at 12. She loved smart kids, brave kids, kids who asked questions and thought for themselves. Tommy leaned against me. Can I ask you something? Can I stay here? With you? I mean, even after everything's over. I don't want to go back. My throat tightened. The court will decide what's best for you. But Tommy, if it were up to me? Yeah, you could stay here as long as you want. What if it's up to me? Then I'd say this house has been too quiet for too long. I'd say, having you here, helping with your homework, teaching you to fish, watching you build things in the garage, it's the best thing that's happened to me in 8 years. He was quiet again. Then, Dad used to say you were just old, that you didn't understand modern stuff, that you couldn't keep up anymore. Your dad was wrong about a lot of things. Yeah, I'm starting to see that. I pulled him closer. Age doesn't make you stupid, Tommy. It just makes you careful. I've seen enough to know when something's wrong. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Is that why you recorded them? Because you were careful? That's why. I trusted my instincts. Same instincts that kept airplanes in the sky for 40 years. Tommy nodded against my shoulder. I want to be like that. When I'm old, I mean. I want to be like you. I felt my eyes sting. Then be honest. Be brave. Stand up for what's right even when it costs you something. That's all it takes. Okay. We sat there until the stars came out, until the mosquitoes got bad and we had to go inside. But for those few minutes, on that porch overlooking the marsh, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. And the sense that maybe, just maybe, something good had come from all this betrayal. I had my grandson, and he had me. Standing in that courtroom, looking at my daughter as she avoided my eyes, I realized the saddest thing about betrayal isn't losing who you thought someone was. It's finally seeing who they always were. The legal process took 3 months. Patricia and Mark were formally charged with conspiracy to commit elder abuse and child intimidation, felonies, both of them. Dr. Brennan faced worse, medical board investigation, criminal charges for attempted fraud and conspiracy. Margaret told me he'd likely lose his license even if he avoided jail time. Turned out I wasn't his first victim. The investigation uncovered 4 other cases where he'd signed questionable competency evaluations, 4 other families where vulnerable adults had nearly lost their autonomy to greedy relatives. But those families hadn't recorded their conspirators. Patricia and Mark's attorney tried to negotiate, argued that it was a misunderstanding, that they were concerned about my well-being, not plotting against me. Hard to claim misunderstanding when your own words are preserved digitally. Your father's sitting on over $1 million. He doesn't need it. We do. Pretty clear intent. Eventually, they accepted a plea deal. No jail time. Probation for 2 years. Mandatory counseling. Full repayment of all legal fees. Mine and the county's. And supervised visitation with Tommy, if and when he chose to see them. The court granted me permanent legal guardianship of Tommy. The judge asked Tommy directly, in chambers, what he wanted. Margaret told me later that Tommy didn't hesitate. I want to live with my grandpa. The judge asked if he loved his parents. Yes, sir, but I don't trust them anymore. 12 years old. and already understanding the difference between love and trust. There was a victim impact statement portion of the sentencing hearing. Margaret asked if I wanted to speak. I did. I stood at that podium in Charleston County Family Court, looked at the judge, and spoke for 5 minutes. I explained what it felt like to suspect your own daughter of plotting against you, to question whether you were paranoid or perceptive, to place that phone under that napkin and hope you were wrong. I explained what it felt like to listen to that recording, to hear your child price your freedom at $5,000 to a corrupt doctor. I explained the impact on Tommy, a boy forced to choose between protecting his grandfather and obeying his parents, a boy who chose right and paid for it with his family. My voice stayed steady the whole time. Engineer's precision. Every word counted. Every sentence is documented. Patricia cried during my statement. I don't know if the tears were real. She tried to apologize afterward, in the hallway outside the courtroom. Margaret intercepted her, but I heard Patricia's voice. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. I looked at her. Her eyes were red. Her makeup smudged. She looked smaller than I remembered, diminished. You're sorry you got caught, I said quietly. Not sorry you tried. Then I walked away. Margaret walked beside me. How do you feel? She asked. Tired. That's understandable. But relieved. It's over. Almost. There's still the permanent custody finalization, but that's a formality at this point. I nodded. Tommy was waiting in the lobby with the victim advocate who'd stayed with him during the hearing. When he saw me, he stood. How'd it go? It went fine. Let's go home, buddy. He took my hand. 12 years old, nearly as tall as me, and he still took my hand. We walked out of that courthouse together, into the Charleston sun, and I didn't look back. The day my grandson brought home a robotics project and asked for my help, I realized Patricia tried to take my future, but instead, she gave me a purpose I didn't know I needed. 6 months after the sentencing, Tommy and I had found our rhythm. He transferred to a new school closer to my house, James Island Charter, good academics, strong science program. He settled in faster than I expected. Turns out being the new kid is easier when you're not carrying the weight of your parents' crimes. We established routines. Breakfast together every morning. I make eggs and toast. Tommy handles the orange juice and sets the table. We talk about his day ahead, what tests he has, what projects are due. Homework happens at the kitchen table, the same table where Helen used to grade her students' papers 30 years ago. That space sat empty for 8 years after she died. Now, it's alive again with a boy's questions and textbooks, and the scratch of pencil on paper. I help where I can. Math comes easy. Engineering background makes algebra feel simple. Science projects are my specialty. When Tommy brought home his robotics club assignment, build a functional gripper arm, I about lit up like Christmas morning. We spent 2 weeks in the garage working on that thing. Ball bearings and servo motors and Arduino controllers, teaching him to solder, showing him how to read circuit diagrams, watching him figure out the mechanical advantage of different lever arms. He got an A, but more than that, he understood it, really understood it. His teacher asked if I'd volunteer as a mentor for the robotics club. I said yes. Friday nights are pizza nights. We order from Evo on Maybank Highway. Tommy gets pepperoni. I get margarita. We eat on the porch if the weather's good. Watch whatever movie Tommy picks. Sunday mornings, we go fishing at Folly Beach. Pier fishing mostly. Nothing fancy. Just 2 poles, some bait, and whatever wants to bite. Most Sundays we don't catch much. Doesn't matter. Tommy talks while we fish. About school. About his friends. About the robotics competition coming up. Sometimes he talks about his parents. Mom sent another letter. He told me last month. Did you read it? Yeah. What did it say? That she's sorry. That she misses me. That she's in counseling and she's changing. How does that make you feel? He was quiet for a while. Watched his line in the water. I don't know. I miss her sometimes. But I don't trust her. That's fair. Is it bad that I don't want to see her yet? No, buddy. That's your choice. When you're ready. If you're ready, you'll know. He nodded. We caught a small whiting that morning. Threw it back. I updated my will with Margaret's help. Established an education trust for Tommy. Ironclad protections. Nobody can touch it except for his college, trade school, or vocational training. Not his parents. Not anyone. Tommy's future is secured. The house feels different now. Lived in. There's a 12-year-old's shoes by the door, his backpack on the hook, his science fair project taking up half the dining room. Helen would have loved this. Sometimes I talk to her picture on the mantel. We got a good one here, sweetheart. He's going to be okay. And I think she'd agree. Tommy calls me Grandpa most of the time. But when we're working on projects in the garage, he calls me Coach. I like both just fine. I learned at 71 what I should have known at 40. The people who love you don't calculate your worth in dollars. They measure it in the time they actually want to spend with you. Last Sunday, I watched Tommy practice his casting at Folly Beach. He's getting good at it. Smooth release. Good distance. The boy's got natural mechanics. Standing there, watching him, I thought about everything that's happened. I still grieve sometimes. Not for Patricia as she is, but for the daughter I thought I had, though I'm not sure anymore that she ever existed. Maybe I just saw what I wanted to see. Maybe the greed was always there, just waiting for the right circumstances to show itself. I don't hate her. That might surprise people, but hate takes energy I don't want to spend. I pity her mostly. She let money hollow her out, let it turn her into someone who could threaten her own son, who could plot against her father and call it protection. That's not strength. That's a weakness. Mark was always weak, following her lead, enabling her worst impulses. But he made his choices. He owns them. What I know now, what I learned through all this, trust must be earned, even from blood, especially from blood. DNA doesn't create loyalty. Actions do. Tommy proved that. A 12-year-old boy showed more integrity than his 43-year-old mother, more courage than his 45-year-old father. He heard them plotting. He confronted them. He told the truth even when it cost him his family. That's character. That's the kind of man he's going to become. I'm grateful for my engineer's mind. Those 40 years at Boeing taught me to trust patterns, to document, to gather evidence before making conclusions. If I'd been someone else, someone who trusted blindly, who ignored instincts, who believed family couldn't betray family, I'd be in some cheaper facility right now. My house sold, my savings drained, my autonomy gone, and Tommy would be learning that betrayal works, that threatening people into silence is effective, that money matters more than integrity. Instead, he's learning different lessons. That courage means standing up even when you're scared, that doing the right thing costs something, but it's still right. That family is defined by loyalty, not genetics. That phone recording saved 2 lives, my freedom, and Tommy's innocence. People ask me sometimes if I miss Patricia, if I wish things had gone differently. The truth? I miss the illusion. I miss believing my daughter loved me more than she loved my money. But I don't miss the reality, the calculating looks, the probing questions, the feeling of being assessed for weakness. I don't miss being seen as a problem to be managed instead of a father to be honored. What I have now is better. I have Tommy, a boy who chooses to spend time with me because he wants to, not because he's working an angle. I have Sunday mornings fishing, Friday night pizza, robotics projects in the garage. I have a purpose again. Helen used to say that people show you who they are if you're willing to look. She was right. Patricia showed me, Mark showed me, and Tommy showed me. I chose to believe the one who proved himself through sacrifice, not the ones who proved themselves through scheming. At 71, I'm raising a 12-year-old. That wasn't the plan, but plans change. What matters is, I'm not alone. Tommy's not in danger, and we're building something good here. A life based on honesty, trust, mutual respect, the things family should have been all along. Tommy finished casting, turned to me. How was that, Coach? Perfect, buddy. Just perfect. And it was. If you're watching this and wondering whether your own family is planning something behind your back, trust that feeling, because my ignored instincts almost cost me everything. I want to talk to you directly for a minute. If you've watched this whole story, if something about it felt familiar, if you've had that same uneasy feeling about your own adult children or relatives, Listen to me. Trust your instincts. You didn't survive 60, 70, 80 years by being stupid. Your gut knows when something's wrong, when conversations feel off, when people are too interested in your finances and not interested enough in you. Don't dismiss that. Document everything. I'm serious. Keep records. Save emails. If you suspect something, do what I did. Gather evidence. You don't have to use it, but if you need it, you'll be grateful you have it. Patterns don't lie. People do. Protect your assets legally before you suspect problems. Talk to an estate attorney. Set up trusts. Make sure your will is ironclad. Make sure someone you actually trust has power of attorney, not just whoever's convenient. Because once someone starts trying to take control, it's harder to fight back. And here's the thing I learned. Real family doesn't count your money. They count memories with you. If your adult children are more interested in your bank statements than your stories, if they're asking about your house value more than your health, if they're planning your future without asking what you want, those are red flags. Pay attention. If you're in a situation like I was, get help. Call Adult Protective Services. Call an attorney who specializes in elder law. Call the police if you need to. These resources exist because this happens more than you think. You're not paranoid. You're not being difficult. You're protecting yourself. That's your right. And if you're a grandparent raising a grandchild, like I am now, you're not alone. Millions of us are doing this. It's hard work. It's unexpected. But it's also honorable work. You're saving a kid, giving them stability, teaching them what real family looks like. That matters. Before I go, I want to ask you something. Drop your location and what time it is where you're watching this. I'm curious how far this story has reached, and if you've been through something similar, if you've faced betrayal from family, if you've had to fight for your autonomy, if you've protected a grandchild from their own parents. Share your story in the comments. Not for me, for each other, so people know they're not alone. One more thing. Age brings wisdom, not weakness. Don't let anyone tell you different. I'm 71 years old. I rebuilt a carburetor last week. I mentor a robotics club. I'm raising a 12-year-old. My mind is sharp. My hands are steady. And I'll be damned if anyone tries to take my dignity again. You're not too old to fight back. You're not too old to start over. You're not too old to build something new. Remember that. And remember, the people who truly love you will prove it through their actions, not their inheritance expectations. Trust that. Fight for that. Live for that. Thank you for listening to an old engineer's story. Take care of yourselves and watch your backs.